এই দয়াটা বন্ধ করে দিতে পারলাম না তো।
স্টার্ট করুন।
স্টার্ট করব। হ্যালো,
স্টার্ট।
হ্যাঁ, স্টার্ট করব।
স্টার্ট।
Okay, thank you. A very good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of the Department of Economics, Bhairav Ganguly College, I cordially invite you all in the webinar on the socio-economic implication of COVID-19 in India, quest for coordinated bailout efforts. It is my privilege to introduce with the theme of today's webinar, the two terms COVID-19 and lockdown need no introduction. With the onset of this pandemic disease, our normal activities has come to a halt. Schools, colleges, universities are closed. Industrial and services sector have shut their operation, bringing a tremendous economic slowdown, not only in our countries, but also across the globe. In this webinar, we will learn from our speaker the socio-economic implication of lockdown due to COVID-19 and try to look for a coordinated bailout efforts by government. We have two eminent speakers is with us. First speaker is CA Sri Kumar Bandyopadhyay, Honorable Member of Governing Body, Bhairav Ganguly College, and next Professor Debashish Majumdar, Heritage College, Kolkata. I would appeal to all esteemed participants that please do not unmute your microphone and do not on your video, and especially do not share your screen during the webinar. A question answer session will be there after the deliberation of Professor Debashish Majumdar. All the participants are requested to write question in Q&A icon in their device. A few selected questions will be answered by our resource person. With this brief introduction, I am now handing over the microphone to our Honorable Vice Principal Sir, Dr. Sanjit Kumar Das, for his welcome address. Thank you. Dr. Das, please.
Thanks, Dr. Karar. Good afternoon and welcome to the one-day state-level webinar on the socio-economic implication of COVID-19 in India, organized by the Department of Economics, Bhairav Ganguly College. First of all, I express my gratitude to the two resource persons, Sri Kumar Banerjee, member of the governing body, Bhairav Ganguly College, and Dr. Debashish Majumdar, Professor, Department of Economics, Heritage College, for sparing their valuable time with us and for their presentation that will enrich us in all of us in this pandemic situation. I express my heartiest thanks to the in-charge and all the teachers of the economics department for organizing this webinar. And I also express my heartiest thanks to Dr. Abul Salam of Sripur Dinabandhu College and Sri Mintu Haldar, bursar of this college, for their technical support in organizing this webinar. You know that COVID-19 has changed the socioeconomic structure of the world and creating a huge impact on the economy as well as in the social life of the people. And loss of GDP, unemployment is observed everywhere. And in this backdrop, the academician has the responsibility to find out a roadmap that will help us to counter the situation. So we have a very interesting and relevant topic in our hand today, and I hope that everyone will be benefited with the valuable information and insights of our honorable speakers. So thank you everyone, and let's enjoy the seminar, the webinar, and over to Dr. Shantanu Chakraborty for introduction of our honorable speaker. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, sir. And now I introducing our honorable keynote speaker, C.A. Sri Kumar Bandyopadhyay. Mr. Banerjee is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountant of India. He is an independent director of West Bengal Power Development Corporation Limited, WBPDCL, and West Bengal State Electricity Transmission Company Limited, ACTECL. He has expertise in industrial and professional practice covering oil and Natural Gas Commission, ONGC, NICCO Corporation Limited, Manager Corporate Tax, Lovelock and Lewis, and LB Jha and Kong, Partner Taxation. He has served the Confederation of Indian Industries, that is CII, as an ex-member of Economic Forum. He now practices under his own firm, namely Sri Kumar Bandopadhyay and Kong, Chartered Accountants. He has written various articles on direct and indirect tax matters covering mergers, demergers, stamp sale, VAT, FBT, tax audit, and other current topics. These have been published in leading tax and corporate journals such as Taxman, SEBI, and Chartered Accountants Today, corporate professionals, and in popular dailies like Sambad Pratidin, Proyog, Jago Bangla, etc. Apart from this, he is an author of Contemporary on West Bengal VAT Act 6th edition and West Bengal VAT Act Practice and Procedure, commentary on Foreign Black Money Act, FATCA, and Income Declaration Scheme, Direct Tax and Indirect Tax, Dispute Resolution Scheme, and Benami Transaction Act. He is a popular face of TV channels, and he joined as a number of times in the panel of experts in discussion of topics, including union budget, finance bill, dollar-rupee fight, demonetization, foreign black money, demerger and works contract tax under service tax and value-added tax, and other matters relating to the economic policies of central and state governments. So now I welcome CA Sri Kumar Banerjee and as keynote speaker to give his deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Today topic is Socio-economic Implications of COVID-19 in India, Quest for Coordinate Bailout Efforts. My dear professional colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, teachers, students joined in this seminar. Actually, first of all, I want to record my sincere thanks that Bhairav Ganguly College has given me an immense opportunity to share my views with you on the given subject. At the same time, I wish to record my sincere thanks to the Vice Principal, Principal in charge Sanjit Kumar Das, Mr. Pradeep Karar, Associate Professor, Department of Economics, Bhairav Ganguly College, Dr. Devashish Majumdar, Professor and HOD, Department of Economics, the Heritage College, Kolkata, and also other professors, teachers, and everybody. I hope we are all out of the coronavirus and we are enjoying our life. Even then, there is a huge possibility that almost everywhere in the world we are panic about COVID-19, and India is facing the longest lockdown period of 2.5 months. Before that, as a keynote speaker, I believe I will deliberate my speech and restricted into 3 parts because of the fact I believe as a keynote speaker, I will give a overall deliberations of the economic and the COVID-19 and lockdown and unlock period. As a result of which, at present, India ranking 4th in corona affected population, and yesterday figure shows we have crossed 7 lakhs affected, and unfortunately, loss of life is more than 18,000. And when we are talking about COVID-19, at the same time, this is synonymous with the lockdown. COVID-19 as a forced us to remain in the house for 2.5 months, and as a result of which we could not go out of the home. All of the economic activities remain standstill. So, first question coming to my mind, that our economy is in a red zone because of lockdown period, or it's a carry forward and cascading effect of the earlier misdeed on the economic front. Why I am raising this question? Because if we all study last 2.5 years, economic health of India was not good. And in fact, whether government admits or not admittance, the fact remains we are not in a good shape, but we are in a very bad shape. That's the reason my deliberation restricted into 3 parts. Number 1 first, pre-lockdown period, what was the economic situation in India? Second part, what is our position in COVID situation in a lockdown period? And what after the unlock period, because we are entering into the second unlock period. So what would be the remedy? Is there any hope? What should be done? What should not be done? That we will discuss. Before that, before the lockdown period, our economy was in very, very bad shape. If we revisit the statistical data of the pre-lockdown period, we can easily understand where we stood that time. I am giving just highlighted 2, 3, 4 data to understand the pre-lockdown health of the Indian economy. 2019-20 fiscal period, our GDP was 4.2%. Comparing to the last year, it was 5.7%, and it is the past 11 years, the lowest figure of GDP is 4.2%, and most crucial figure is this, 2019-20, the last quarter figure, GDP figure was 3.1%. And manufacturing sector, if you see, the GDP is only 0.03% in comparison with the last year figure of 5.7%. And also, if you see, 8 core sector, GDP is 2.1% in July 2020. Corresponding July 2019, it was 7.3%. And unemployment is a natural fallout of the GDP, natural fallout of the sluggish growth rate of the construction sector, manufacturing sector, service sector. The unemployment stood at 8.2%, and rural unemployment figure is 9.2%, and it is highest ever over the last 60 years. Please keep in mind. And that is to be reflected. The another data, if you kindly see, our two-wheelers production down by 11.2%. Car manufacturing down by 13%. And most crucial factor, that tractors production come down to 15%. So it shows the overall health of the economy was not very good. And that is what not very good is a sugar-coated word. It is very bad. And that's the reason now in the lockdown period, whatever data we are getting, our economy is in a red zone because of that, not only that, because of the lockdown period, because of the fact earlier 2.5 years we are not giving much importance, much thinking, bailout thinking, what should be done, because that is cascading effect in the lockdown period. And if you kindly see our that position. So why this is happening? Why this is happening? Because of the fact we are doing the demonetization. That has a negative impact on the economy. We are introducing half-cooked GST, goods and service tax. This is a half-cooked. Still, it is not totally prepared and completed. Number of instruction is coming. A number of notification is coming saying earlier one is not right. So in that background, our economy was not in a good shape. Now the COVID is coming in the Indian economy, basically in the month of March 2020. Then lockdown started from 25th March. That time everything becomes standstill. And now we are landing in a very worse situation. So my point as a keynote speaker, I want to emphasize, if we take care, the economic health of the earlier 2.5 years would be minimum. The effect of pandemic COVID-19 would be minimum on the economic front. Even 2.5 years, what is doing? Only we are doing the essential services. So we'll have to keep in mind the second lockdown period, as we are prisoned in the home, we could not go out to the home. So all of the activities are closed. So economy did not go. Because in economy, you will have to spend at least 1 rupee in a day. That will add to the GDP of our country. So as a result of which, 133 million job has been lost during the financial year 2019-20. And during the lockdown period, we have seen that figure touches 400 million lost the job. And if we see the position of laborers, because there is no production, as there is no production, and in fact, in our economy at present, absolutely suffering from cash crunch. There is no liquidity in the system, demand and supply position. If you see, if the fundamentals of the economics as a modern world, in the free economic era, what is to be needed during the lockdown period and in the unlock period, we will have to pump more liquidity in the system. Now the question is, how we will pump the money in the liquidity system? The government will come out and to give face blood with the economy in the form of liquidity. But unfortunately, this is not happening 100%. And at the same time, if you see now the question is coming, why our economy was in bad shape 2.5 years? Why this is happening, worse situation as on today? Because of the fact I mentioned earlier, demonetization, half-cooked GST. At the same time, if you see the NPA, non-performing asset mounting up to 80 lakh crores, so that money goes out of the system. So government providing more funds in order to save the banking business. So government is providing more funds. That what mean? Government earning is limited. Out of that, they are giving certain money to the bank. Because of this is nothing but a loss financing. Loss financing means that's the NPA. Government has not taken proper steps. At the same time, and add to the injury, China attacks India. So you'll have to force, you have no other option to spend more money on the defense sector. Now the government is buying various fighter aircraft from Russia, from America to combat the situation of Chinese aggression. You have no option. So again, money has been transferred to a defense sector, which is counterproductive. So now everybody is asking, everybody is discussing, academician, economists, what is needed to be done here. The government is coming out. One good thing has been done by the government, both central and state, across the level. They are giving the essential food grains to the almost all the population of India. So they are now safe up to coming September 2020, or as per announcement of the Chief Minister of Government of West Bengal, up to June 2021. Now, I am raising another very important questions to this forum to discuss, to debate. Now the government is providing essential commodities from their earlier purchase. Why I am saying earlier purchase? Why I am emphasizing the word earlier purchase? They are giving from the go down, but that has been purchased during the financial year 2019-20. And if that purchase can be done today, that will create more commercial transaction. As this has not been done, so providing essential commodities, it is good, but that is not circulating to the economy, because people is getting the economic stimulus in kind. But the ray of hope is that the monsoon season, almost in the middle of the monsoon season, monsoon is good, the crop is almost to be in the market, so government will buy the crops from the farmers. So farmers will get money. So when the farmers will get money, farmers, from that money, they will incur expenditure. That means the money comes into the system. So I will recollect one theory of Adam Smith, invisible hands. Today, the presence of invisible hands is absolutely absent. So what is needed? Government, central government declares stimulus package of 20 lakh crores. After that, Finance Minister Sitaramana, Madam has spelled out in 5 days how much to be given in what sector. After analyzing the 20 lakh crore economic package, we see in reality it is a 3.20 lakh crore. That means 2% of the GDP, and others either in the form of loan or from tax cut in the corporate sector or interest subsidy for building house loan. But what is needed today? According to the most of the economies, you will have to give the cash money to the bank account of the marginal people so that they can incur the expenditure. I am referring to the invisible hands because of the fact, if you see, I am just giving one very easy example. Suppose government buying crops from me, say rupees 1,000. I am getting 1,000 rupees. Transaction does not end here. It starts from here. Because I am getting 1,000 rupees. Out of 1,000 rupees, suppose for corona panic or for emergency purpose, I am keeping 100 rupees as my saving. So 900 I will have to incur expenditure. I am going to the market, buying materials as per my choice. So 900 rupees distributed. Out of 900 rupees, the seller of the material is getting. So they will again distribute that 900 rupees to the various purchaser from whom he is purchasing the materials and selling to the farmers. So in that way, the money would be circulated and keep on circulation. So in economic theory, it is called invisible hands, and that is created more wealth. Suppose I am giving similar example to understand what I am saying. Suppose Mr. X is a very wise man. He has the land, he cultivates the land and produce crops, and these crops for his own consumption. This is good, but that will not add a single rupee to the GDP. If he produces the crops, selling it to the market, getting money, out of that money, he is again purchasing the materials, then money becomes circulated. Or that cycle moves, accelerate the economy. So what is needed? I feel government spending would be more. They will come out with various social scheme like 100 days labor payment. They increase the salary of the labor payments. That's good. So I think government put more money into the system. Some of the school thought during that period, is it a viable option to print more currency so that that currency can be put into the system? There is a long debate among the economics, but some of the notable economists is saying, yes, you print the currency and put into the circulation, make an account how much you put into the system, so that as soon as the economy getting the momentum for putting that new currency into the system, so after that momentum, there is a common theory, accepted theory, say it would be a inflation. Inflation, yes, it would be a inflation, but some school of economics thought, if you put the money after the economy cycles moves and it gets momentum, you slowly take out the money to the extent of money you put into the system by way of printing currency notes. You take out the money during that period that my economy moves, so that will take care of everything. This is one thought. Other thought rejected the views from the ab initio, saying no, this is not possible. But if you see, today's our economy is not in a recession stage, keeping in mind, this is in a depression stage. If anybody has the experience, the depressed patient is very much pushier than the other COVID-19 patient. So, according to me, our economy is sinking down, and size of the Indian economy at present is 200 lakhs crore. So, rough estimation, it would be reduced to 130 lakh crore. That means GDP would be reduced to, there are various houses making their own estimation. Moody is making another estimation, but they are saying it cannot be more than 2%. So I do hope what the Prime Minister is saying, I think to some extent it is right. In the sense, if you see the statistics, whatever I am saying, this is a very negative statistics, but this is a part of the life. But the positive thing is that last 1.5 months, our consumption of diesel and petrol is increasing. Consumption of electricity is increasing. New crop is coming into the market. Demand of fertilizer is increasing. With all these things, we do hope that our economy may come out or bail out from the very dangerous zone to red zone to yellow zone. But before that, we do believe at present, whatever report is coming to us regarding COVID-19, we will have to live with COVID-19, and slowly every sector is opening, because we don't have any other choice, because choice is very limited. Either stay in the home, starving, hungry, not getting food, COVID may not be touch you, but other option is taking all precaution, mask, hand sanitization, social distancing to the extent possible, come out of the house and do the business. Otherwise, Indian economy, if we are staying in the home, nobody can save us. Slowly, government is taking the right decision. Doctors may be different thinking, different advices, but the fact remains, our choice is very limited. Either to stay in the home, shut down our doors and windows, so there would be no pandemic, we would not be affected. But how long, how long time we can do this? So our coffee house is also, Indian coffee house is also opening. There might be a debate. This is not the right time to sip a cup of coffee, but according to me, every sip of cup of coffee positively contributes to the economy, to the growth of the economy. So we believe another thing in the Indian context, it would be better if we can mention it earlier, that political system. Whatever we do, we should be very much transparent, and political will must be positive. If our political will is not positive at this juncture, we would be in the deeper situation. We could not come out of the red zone. So we do hope the government will come out with a total figure of 20 lakh crores, because there are substantial portion, they are saying SMEs go to the bank taking money. But the fact remains, if you see the statistics, the bank, commercial bank is having idle money. No one is a taker. Who will take the money? And if you see the investment pattern over the last 3 years, investment down by 17%. So at this juncture, as a student of economics, what I personally feel, maybe it's a debatable point, you may not agree or may agree, what we need now, first pump out the money to the common people, so there would be a situation where people can spend more money. So you will have to develop purchasing power of the people. Whatever government is doing, what should be done today, they are thinking for the future. Long term is good. They are giving a fiscal benefit to the businessman. Cut down of the corporate tax rate, it's good. Cut down of the home building loan, it's good. Cut down of the interest rate is good. But what is needed today? Needed today is that giving money to the government man, common man, when they are getting the money, demand would be coming. But they are going for consumption. Consumption gets demand. When demand is more, to match the demand, supply is required. Then the entrepreneur, the industrialist will be encouraged to put more money, to put more factories, to buy more things for trading or manufacturing. So the cycle of the economy moves. First, you will have to get the first impetus in the form of liquid money. So when common people starts buying, demand would be created. When demand would be created, then the entrepreneurs, individuals think, yes, that's the right time to expand our production capacity, to do new business. They are coming to the banks for the new funds. As they are getting the funds at the cheaper rate, they would be interested to put more money, and the price would be sensitive, competitive. So as a result of which, I think this is the position from where we can get a clue, and this is the right time to the whatever the disadvantageous position to convert it into the advantageous position. And at the same time, whole world, most of the European countries boycott China products. They are in a mood of boycotting China products. So exports slowly moving, slowly gear up. So that opportunity government should take. So government should take a new export policy, so that in place of China, we can export our goods to the European country, and that is the right time to occupy the market. At the same time, when Chinese aggression is there, we are saying too many things, but our dependence on the Chinese is a huge. On a single day, on a single stock, you cannot wash out the Chinese from the Indian economy, because in a medical sector, in the medicine manufacturing, all of the raw materials is coming from China. In the electronics, in the phone, so everything we are dependent on China. If you see the balance of trade, the difference between the balance of trade between China and India, the gap is day to day by increasing. So that's the right time the government should come out with a short term, medium term, and long-term policy to combat the COVID-19 fallout. At the same time, government, that's the right time to come out with a clear-cut policy in mind, not that today you are saying someday, tomorrow you are saying something, day after tomorrow you are saying something. No, you will have to give a total roadmap. In the roadmap, that roadmap divided into 3, 4, 5 parts: short term, very short term, medium term, long term. So otherwise, I think that's the also convert this an opportunity. I do hope with these things, our resourceful man, Dr. Devasis Mojumdar, will say all nitty-gritty of the economics. As a keynote speaker, I do hope J will have to live with the corona. There is no other option, but we'll have to come out from our house. Slowly, the situation would be normal. Our economy would be come out of the red zone to yellow, then green, and rough estimation, the economy at least come to 5% GDP state. It will take 2 to 3 years. I'm really grateful once again giving me a patient hearing. And if you have any questions, the resourceful man give answer. And if you ask me any question, I'm ready to give you the answer. But this is a economic policy. It is a debatable issues. I feel something right, you may not feel, but at the same time, we may agree, all the persons, this time Indian economy needs fresh blood in the form of liquidity. Otherwise, we'll have to suffer for years. With this, thank you to everybody for giving me a patient hearing. And once again, I am very thankful to Bhairav Ganguly College Authority to giving me an opportunity to share my views with the distinguished participants. We cannot see the participants because of this, and at the same time, we are entering a new era. That is a technology-based education, technology-based lecture, and that is, we'll have to learn more. With this, I am concluding my deliberation. Thank you to everybody.
Good afternoon. I, on the behalf of Bhairav Ganguly College and the entire team of today's webinar, extend a very hearty thanks to Honorable CA Sri Kumar Banerjee for his informative explanation on the topic of the socio-economic implications of COVID-19 in India and spending his valuable time with us. We hope he will be with us in the future program also. Now, I am going to introduce today's research person, Dr. Devashish Majumdar sir. It gives me immense pleasure to invite Dr. Devashish Majumdar sir on behalf of the organizing committee of Bhairav Ganguly College. Dr. Devashish Majumdar is now serving at the Heritage College, Kolkata, as a professor in the Department of Economics. He has been teaching economics both at undergraduate and postgraduate levels for the last 35 years. He completed his postgraduate study in economics from Jadavpur University, MPhil in economics from the University of Calcutta, and done his PhD from Rabindra Bharati University, Kolkata. He started his career as an assistant professor in economics in a government college of South Tripura. During his service period, he has served at Sudhir Ranjan Lahiri Mahavidyalaya, Nodia, and Bangladeshi College, Kolkata. He has also been working as a visiting faculty at the PG Commerce section of Navobaliganj Mahavidyalaya, Kolkata. Since 2013, he was also an impaneled research guide for PhD scholars at Vidyasagar University, Midnapur, and 2 scholars have been awarded PhD degree under his guidance. He has authored and co-authored about 35 textbooks in economics, some of which are the prescribed textbook at the undergraduate level of Calcutta University, contributed about 60 research articles in national and international journals, and edited 2 conference volumes. His research areas consist of international trade, green marketing, rural development, etc. Therefore, sir, I welcome you to enlighten us with your thoughts on the today's topic. Over to you, sir.
Very good afternoon to everybody. This is my proud privilege to be invited as a resource person in this webinar arranged by the Department of Economics, Bhairav Ganguly College. Thanks a lot to the Vice Principal, Dr. Sanjeet Kumar Das, and the joint convener of this webinar, Shantanu Chakrabarti, and my student, Sachidananda Sardar. HOD of the Department of Economics, Ashutosh Murmu, and respected Sri Kumar Banerjee, the keynote speaker, and all other dignitaries and participants. I shall have prepared a PPT so that we can have a pinpoint some of the particular, as Sri Kumar Banerjee has indicated, the nitty-gritties of the problem. So let me first share my PPT so that I can start. So my topic is the socio-economic implications of COVID-19 in India, the quest for coordinated bailout efforts. And we have already observed that Professor, actually my earlier speaker, Sri Kumar Banerjee, he has indicated some of the important issues on this particular problem. And actually, I feel that my PPT or my presentation will actually support some of the arguments already put forward by Sri Kumar Banerjee in the form of statistical, some of the figures. So first, as indicated by Banerjee, Mr. Banerjee, that what was the condition during the pre-COVID era. During the pre-COVID era, as already indicated by Mr. Banerjee, here we observed that there was a declining trend in the real national income and per capita real national income. And if you observe, starting from 2002-7 to 2012-17, there has been a continuous downtrend in the growth rate of real national income and per capita real national income of India. That means there is a continuous fall. And we, the economists, normally we feel that behind such fall, there are both, cyclical features as well as structural causes are there. Some of the structural causes have already been pointed out by Professor Sri Kumar Banerjee, but in a globalized world, we are very much integrated with the rest of the world. And if there is anything wrong in the global economy, definitely that will affect Indian economy. So I'm not actually making more and more explanation on this particular issue. I am giving a particular indication to what has just happened before this COVID period. Now, if you observe the third quarter 2017 to second quarter 2020, continuous downtrend in the decline in the GDP growth rate. And if you observe, if you consider the in real terms, it will be much more lower. For example, if you consider the sectorized growth as indicated by Mr. Banerjee, in some cases it is almost zero. So forecast made by World Bank or Fitch or Moody's, they have different forecasts based on different statistical information. But what we presume that both in the short run as well as in the long run, there are two cross effects. First is immediate shock. That means there are both demand shock and supply shock, and that shock will definitely going to have an impact on the growth rate of GDP and sectoral GDP also. That means GDP of agriculture, industry, and service. And in our case, the service-led growth, we know that our GDP is mostly, driven by the service sector. And in this period, that means during March 2020 to June up to date, we feel that during the lockdown period, all these sectors, particularly the manufacturing and the service sectors, actually, apart from the essential services, I am not talking about the essential services, the non-essential service, for example, you can tell about the tourism service, you can tell about, say, restaurant service, all these service areas, they have been affected. So now come to the say job situation during the pre-COVID era. Now, if you observe that during 2011 to 2018, we observed that there has been a tremendous job loss to the extent of about 6 million in India, and maximum part has been in rural areas. In fact, in urban areas, there has been job creation, whereas in rural areas, there has been job loss. So in the net figure comes out to be about negative 6 million job loss. Now, sectorally, what we observe is that the affected net job loss, as we observe, is mainly concentrated in areas like agriculture, mining, manufacturing, some other services, and but there has been a net job creation was there during 2011 to 18 in areas like trade, real estate, transport, financial service, education, health, information, and communication. Now, this is most important, because if you want to make a comparison between what was there just before COVID and what the impact of COVID, you have to understand that what was the situation was there. So what we observe here is that the situation was not comparatively so bad in case of trade, real estate, transport, financial service, etc. But what in my next presentation, next PPT, we'll observe that these sectors have already been affected. Now, here, this is a technical term. So far as economics is concerned, this is called employment elasticity to GDP growth. That means percentage change in employment due to a percentage, 1% change in GDP. That means if our production rises, but without corresponding increase in employment, we call it inelastic employment, inelastic growth in employment. Now, during 1987 to 2012, up to say 2017-18 or 2018, you can say, you observe that the elasticity was positive, but it was less than 1. So it was inelastic in the sense that the growth rate of employment was less than the growth rate of GDP. So we call it jobless growth. In several economic research work, you will observe that India was experiencing such jobless growth. But what we observed during, as pointed out by Mr. Banerjee, that after demonetization in 2017, then GST, etc., we observe a job loss growth. That means, as we have already indicated, and here also the employment elasticity to GDP growth also indicated a negative, figure. That means it was not growing, the job was losing. A huge number of people was losing their jobs, particularly affected agriculture, manufacturing, but construction works and trade and repair service, etc. They were having positive elasticity, but still overall the economy was having a negative elasticity. Now, coming to the next slide, this is one of the perennial problems that India faces in terms of poverty. Unemployment and poverty, as you all know, are the perennial problems that we face from time immemorial. Now, for example, here I want to share with you this typical area where you will observe that the Tendulkar Committee report or Rangarajan Committee report, say up to 2011, you will observe that there has been a downward trend in the poverty rate coming down from 2009-10, it was 37%, falling to 29%, etc. But in 2019, one paper by Rawal in Economic and Political Weekly, they have challenged that particular figure, And on the basis of malnutrition or nourishment figure, they have pointed out that in real terms, in 2011-12, the volume of poverty-ridden people was not 363 million, it was about 472 million, much higher than that estimated by the previous, committees or committee reports. Ultimately, what happens, the poverty rate, instead of being 29.5%, it boosted up to 39%. That means the poverty, it depended upon the, how a committee prepares the cutoff level. How do you measure poverty? And there are some tricks that leads to such figures. And what we observe, in recent times, just before COVID, we observe one report published by NSSO, National Sample Survey Organization, in 2017-18. It was all about household consumption expenditure. Very, very important. And it indicated that for the first time during the last 4.5 decades, is the first time that India experienced a fall in the monthly consumption expenditure in India. And in rural area, we observed that there was a 10% decline in the food consumption expenditure. And overall, if you observe the average monthly spending, it was also reduced by 3.7% almost. So if you measure poverty on the basis of per capita consumption expenditure per month, and if there is a fall in such expenditure, then what is the implication? Implication is nothing but it indicates that there has been an increase in the number of poor people in our country. And World Bank recent study in just a recently published World Bank study, it indicates that in South Asia, because of COVID, there will be a huge burden of additional poverty-ridden people. And in South Asia, it will be about 16 million poor people. You will observe the 16 million additional poor people. So what we observe that the problem of poverty has been enormous. It has been intensified through this type of our COVID or pandemic situation. Now, unemployment in recent times in the post-COVID and pre-COVID, if you compare, has already been pointed out by our, a keynote speaker, Mr. Banerjee. Here I have just indicated some of the figures. For example, if you compare the unemployment rate during 2011-12, which was on an average 2.3% higher in urban area always, you will observe that always our Indian unemployment rate is higher in urban areas, urban India. In May 2019, which was 7% on and overall, still urban segment is higher. But in May 2020, it picked or skyrocketed up to 24%. So you see the sudden spike in the unemployment rate. And 27 June data I have collected, it has again come down to about 12% overall. Now, what is the implication? If after lockdown, after such pandemic, when through government instruction, as a government order, several segments of the economy were locked, were stopped, business transactions were not there. So without any work, and if in an economy, most of the workers are in the informal sector, informal segment. For example, we know that in India, about 91% of the total workforce are in the informal sector. So that can be retrenched without any compensation at any moment. Actually, during the globalization period, it has been intensified because the exporters, they're much more susceptible to global fluctuations, and they are inclined to employ more casual workers, so that if there is a fall in the global market, they can retrench the workers at any time without compensation. So here, a sudden increase in the unemployment rate during the pandemic period, it already indicates, we have already indicated the problem of poverty. So if there is much more unemployment, job loss of income, then that will also boost up the problem of poverty in India. So it is interlinked. So poverty, unemployment, malnutrition, inequality, everything is interlinked. So if you just twist on the one end the other end will twist. Now, CMIE, as I have indicated, the CMI data, Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, a Mumbai-based center, it takes, say, quarterly, say, some survey. It asks some households that have you experienced over the last quarter say a downfall in your income or an increase in your income, or your income has remained unchanged. So there are three categories, and what we observed that during 2020, in January 2020 to April 2020, that data what I have now, it shows that orange color line, it indicates that people saying that their income has declined, has suddenly increased. So it also corroborates our earlier conjecture that yes, during the pandemic period, there has been job loss, and with that job loss, more and more people are having low income. Now, coming to the industry specific situation. Now, our Economic Times, their research group, they make industry-wise say study. Some of them are survey-based. This is not a sample survey-based. This is not a census operation, because it's not possible to make a census. We may have more details, say survey report after say 6 months, but now whatever say data we have, we observe that the industries like automobile manufacturing, auto dealers, or retail say business, severe say job loss has been there. For example, I'm giving you an example of auto manufacturing, where it was estimated that 5 million employees were there in that particular segment, and about 2 to 3 million job losses were there. That means they are of the opinion, that means the researchers are of the opinion that most of these employees are not permanent. They are contract basis workers, and they are informal in nature, where there is no job security, there is no other service security. So they can be retrenched at any moment, and that led to such job loss, and that has happened also in case of retail service. But retail service minded, if you consider the consumption behavior of the people, the retail, in some case of retail, they are utility goods, and they are say our necessary items. Sometimes they are being sold by these retail say businessmen. So here, out of 46 million say workers, we observe a lower percentage of job loss, because even during lockdown, to save our life, we had to depend on those retailers, in particularly in some essential services. And auto dealers also, you find the same case. I am giving you some more examples. For example, if you come to restaurant, for example, Mr. Banerjee has indicated the coffee house, say that famous Mannade coffee house here, Addata Sheyajne. So, okay, yes, that adda and that sip of coffee and tea, that will really, yes, I agree with you, sir, that will add to GDP. But when the restaurants are off, that will lead to, say, the proprietors, there no other way but to sack or to lay off some of their, say, non-permanent or casual workers. And we also observed that some of the restaurants, they used supply chain, for example, through Zomato. They used to supply the cooked food. So some of them remain operative, but the impact was there. And media and entertainment, there was a big blow, because, for example, if the cinema hall is closed, the entertainment world is closed, so their job loss, their income loss will be severe, no doubt. Even in case of manufacturing industry, particularly in the secondary segment, we observe there has been one important sector that Economic Times has indicated, the steel. Here also we observe some of job losses cases. Now, internet business, real estate, travel and tourism. There is a tremendous loss of travel and tourism segment. Here you observe that out of 55 million employees, about 38 million job losses. Throughout the world, this has happened. Throughout the world, there's a tremendous job loss. Now, in case of India, this has also happened, because now the tourists are both across the globe, within country. So this is within our country, the loss. Now that in the real estate, which is more peculiar, actually more important to me, is that here a large number of workers are migrants in the real estate sector, in the construction sector. And you observe that 70% of the workers working in the real estate segment, they are migrators. They are a different type of migrants, for example, from rural to urban, within the country, cross country, say intercontinental migration. There are different types of migration. But here, if you consider within country migration from one state to another, you observe that the condition in the real estate sector, there is a sudden loss in the real estate sector that also led to a job loss in that particular sector. So that is also a shock. Now, coming to education sector and telecommunication sector. Now, for example, you being in your Bhairav Ganguly College or say myself in Heritage College or in Bangladesh College, several non-accommodated colleges, there is no question. For example, the teachers are engaged in online classes. Yes, their jobs are secured by the government, but there are, say, thousands and millions of private level small schools and colleges where the jobs are not secured. And this data indicates that, yes, there has also been a case of job loss in education segment also. And in telecommunication service also, there has been a job loss. Now, after such job loss, that means if there is a job loss, there is a loss of income, I want to present one of the recent data that has been published by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation by the Government of India. That means here we present the share of private final consumption expenditure of the people in the domestic market. And if you go through this share, it is very important. Say, if you consider our essential expenditure pattern, which certainly includes food and non-alcoholic beverages, which constitutes about, say, 26% of our total expenditure. And here the red mark, I personally, I have put that red mark indicating the areas where there were possible chances of, say, expenditure cut. For example, the people who are locked, who are under the stress of not going out much, they may cut their clothing and footwear expenditure, they may cut their furnishing, household equipment expenditure, then the transport expenditure, because by way of government order, the transport, railway transport are not there. Off late during the unlock period, some private transport and government transport has started operating, but consider the lockdown period. I am particularly concentrating my the view here, particularly to that particular period. Say recreation and culture, then restaurant. So in this area, if there is a fall in expenditure, that will lead to a demand shock. Okay, so if there is say closure of different manufacturing units, service sector units, agriculture operation, there will surely be a supply shock. And if the people losing their jobs, say reduce their say spending, consumption spending, which is a significant part of our aggregate say expenditure of India, then there will certainly be a decline in the total aggregate output, and that has been reflected there. So one of the principal reasons was during that lockdown, the fall in private consumption expenditure. Now, coming to supply shock, I want to represent how the situation of global link, a global supply shock appears. It appears in the form of global supply chain. Now the whole world is very much integrated, particularly during the globalized world that we have been observing since 1991. And here I'm representing one example from the Global Value Chain Report 2020 of the World Bank, which indicates, I have taken this example where I want to show you that one company of Vietnam producing this computerized say electronic bicycle. But if you observe that the seat is being procured from Italy, then the wheels and spokes from China, the different parts of a cycle are procured from different parts of the world, and then Vietnam assemble it and they just sell that particular product. So selling a particular product and procuring the inputs from different parts of the world. Now, if different countries are affected And if such lockdown and if such stoppage of production happens in different countries, it becomes difficult for any particular company to procure inputs, necessary inputs from different parts of the world. So there will surely be a break in the global supply chain. So that is my point, that how this pandemic throughout the globe impacts the global supply chain and thereby impacting India also. For example, coming to the car manufacturing segment, for example, recently you have observed that there has been a tension between India and China, as already been pointed out by Mr. Banerjee. Some of our car manufacturing, say, companies, they have appealed to the government of India that they must be given permission to import some of the crucial components from outside world, particularly from China, so that they can manufacture the whole car. So now the different parts of the car are being say, imported normally. So why this is so? This is so particularly because there is a division of labor. So international division of labor. For example, if there is, in economic terms, we call it comparative advantage. Different countries have comparative advantage, cost advantage in producing different products. And if different countries produce different parts of a particular say product, and the final product is being produced by procuring those products from those specialized suppliers, then the cost involved will be much lower than the case where a single country wants to produce the whole thing. So that is the point. So again, my point is that with the break in the global supply chain, yes, there will be an impact on some of the industries in India. Now coming to the third and the final, say, example, in my case, I am pointing out the China-based photovoltaic solar panel manufacturing. Here, you observe that the designing is made by China, some of the inputs are being procured from UK, USA, Switzerland, Netherlands, etc. And then it is being supplied. So if there is a break in the supply chain, then all the countries will be affected. For example, now we are talking of alternative power, say depending less on fossil fuel. So if this supply chain breakage, there is a breakage in the supply chain, then all the countries will suffer, including that of India. Now, I'm concentrating on the countries which are affected. I have taken a selected countries which are already been affected by COVID, including that of China, and the share of our import, India's import from those countries. And now what we observe that out of these countries like Italy, Spain, France, Germany, Japan, South Korea, USA, Iran, etc., China's share, both in terms of value and percentage, is much more higher compared to those other countries. For example, in 2018-19, our imports were about $70 billion US dollar from China, and it constituted about 13.7% of the total import of India. So you can imagine the importance of China in our say foreign trade. Now coming to the segments for which India depended on China. For example, about in case of electronic machinery and equipments, India used to import normally say 40% resource was from China. So India depended for electronic goods 40% on China and 60% on other countries. In this way, in case of nuclear reactor, organic chemical, plastic, fertilizer, etc., we observe our dependence on China. So if there is a break in this chain, then we obviously we have to depend on some other countries. But look, more or less in different parts of the globe, they are suffering. Now, there has been a disturb in the sense that the whole thing, that is the total supply, that framework has been disturbed. So up till, unless there is normalization, India's dependence on the foreign say countries will be there for these inputs. Now, for example, we started with Make in India program that has failed. Actually, normally now, say vocal for local, people like they say boycott Chinese goods. But my point is that, as already been pointed out by Mr. Banerjee, that it cannot be done overnight. That means it will require some space. That means you have to build that infrastructure. For example, that spare And I have already told you that comparative cost. If you yourself you want to produce all the products in your country, then average cost of production may be much more higher. So that expertise, that upliftment in your skill, that preparation for infrastructure, it will take some time. So we need a long-term planning, as already been pointed out, Mr. Banerjee. I agree with him. So if we are to reduce our dependence on China and on some of the foreign countries regarding our procurement of those inputs, then we must think in such a way that in a perspective planning we must take so that we can be self-sufficient. Actually, this is the core of Atmanirbhar, but I shall come to that point. Now here, this is a typical, I think it very, astonishing that a foreign value added component as a percentage of manufacturing export. I am taking only manufacturing export part of India, and what we observe that what we import from other countries as inputs and that adds value to our manufacturing export is only 27%. 27%. Actually, 27% of Indian manufacturing items they are dependent on foreign inputs as opposed to Vietnam or Thailand or Malaysia. So they depend. So it also indicates that there is a tremendous implication. Implication is that in the global value chain, our connection is not so strong. In the global value chain, we are poorly connected with say other countries of the world. That is the implication here. Now the next thing is that our trade with say China, India's overall exports and import trade balance, say not only with China, all the countries here. And what we look, see, it is overall export. Overall export means it is both merchandise export as well as service export. I've taken both the figures together and put it in the figurative form. And the diagram shows that the blue figure indicates the import and the yellow one indicates the export. So if you observe the gap, that indicates the trade balance, the negative trade balance. We call it deficit in Indian trade balance. But in May 2020, what we observed that our both, particularly from January 2020 to May 2020, that red marked zone, deliberately I have used that red marked zone to indicate you that there has been a downfall in both of our exports and imports. So this, I think, must be the impact of that pandemic. That means our export market is squeezing, and because of some of the factors which is beyond our control, we had to reduce our import. Our import payments have also been reduced. Say somebody may speak that, sir, in the global market, the crude oil price has fallen, so our import payment has fallen. Yes, that has happened, but typically what we observe that despite the fall in the global oil price, our domestic oil price, crude oil price didn't recede. Actually, the difference was the central governments or say some taxes, excise taxes. It is not falling under GST, so that has been capped out, and they claim that that particular difference has been spent for the for the social welfare, but that is a zone of debate. I do not want to comment at this moment. So here, what I want to tell you that recently India's trade balance has become positive, but it is positive because of the falling trend in both export and imports being less than exports. Now, this is an area which actually I am a member. So recently, I have become a member of Statistica. Statista is one of the organizations, statistical research organization of USA based organization, which makes sample survey throughout the globe and publish the data. And this data indicates that a sample survey was done for 28,000 small MSME, micro, small, and medium enterprises in India, and indicates that during the COVID pandemic, 38% of these micro, small, and medium enterprises, they are out of funds. The red part. Now, 12% of them have funds, say less than 1 month, etc. So all of them are suffering from cash. As again, I am actually grateful to my earlier speaker, who has already indicated that at present the most important part is the cash crunch. We do not have enough liquid cash in our hand, and this is one of the examples that a significant part. Why significant? Because you must be knowing that this MSME segment, it contributed in 2018-19, it has contributed about 31% of India's GDP and 49% of India's exports. So they have a large contribution, and they employ about 11 crore workers. So they are labor intensive. 91% of these MSMEs are micro units. Definition has changed, but normally with very low, investment in fixed capital, less than say about 25 lakhs in case of manufacturing, and in service sector in case of 10 lakhs. It was earlier definition. Now the definition has changed. It is 1 crore, and in the business turnover definition is different. I'm coming to that particular point, but here this slide indicates that yes, there has also been a supply shock, and that must be a culmination of what Mr. Banerjee has indicated, that maybe because of it has started from demonetization period, and say since the period of the implication of, as he has indicated, half-cooked GST. Yes, sir, I agree with you. Now, I'm summing up. Say if you observe the impact in terms of what I have already say indicated in terms of my earlier the expositions, it indicate that economic crisis and the misery, particularly for the poor, has definitely it has increased. There has been, yes, massive job loss, and that has led to increased income inequality. That means inequality in the sense that a maximum part of the income is being concentrated on the hands of a few people. So large number of people having their job lost. So income inequality in the society has definitely increased, and food security, insecurity has increased. Now, informal sector, as again I'm pointing out, the informal sector is hard hit because 91% of them, of our workforce, are there in the informal sector without any security. And ILO report, recent ILO report, April 2020, it also indicated that in Asia and Pacific zone, there has been a 7.2% decline in the working hours because of this pandemic, and this is equivalent to a full-time job loss for about 150 million workers. So just can imagine that if there is a slightest fall in the working hours, that can lead to such huge job loss. Now, we know that a large number of migrants are also there, state migrants, say intercontinental migrants. Now, if they lose their jobs, then the remittance to their families will also fall. And a recent research also indicates that in West Bengal, there has been a research under my guidance. It shows that in some parts of drought-prone areas of West Bengal, a large segment of say rural families, they depend on the remittances sent by the migrant workers from other parts of the state, from other parts of our country, and from other parts of the globe. So if they lose their job, then these families will suffer. Okay, that has actually happened, and you are aware of the fact that so many migrants, they have lost their jobs, and they were eager to come to their home, their villages, and they were desperate, that we have seen every day. Now, that one aspect is that it has also led to a polarization in the job market. Job market polarization means on the basis of the skill, now the job market has been divided. For example, on some part, you will observe the low skilled people, they will survive. Researchers, they are of the opinion that yes, they will survive some of the low skill job. Some of the high skill job, in European Union, they call it teleworking people. That means we call it work from home. Some of the IT people, say they are high skilled jobs, so that will be retained. But in some of the middle skill job, that maybe it has apprehended that may be swiped away from them through capital intensive technology. So if there are some restrictions from the government that yes, within the factory space, you have to maintain this restrictions. Then instead of employing more say workers for doing such say routine jobs, they can employ some machines, so that mid skill may be swiped away, and there will be a polarization in the job market, and that will also add to income inequality in the labor market. Now we come to the health shock and economic shock, and the trade-off between life and livelihood. Already been pointed out by Mr. Banerjee that yes, if we go out, then there is also a chance that we being infected by the COVID. But if we do not go out, then we miss our income opportunity. So we have to balance between our life and livelihood. There is always a trade-off. This is a very typical trade-off. That means whether my life is more say precious to me, or my family whom I should feed, I should earn more. If I earn more, then I risk my life. So all these situations are there, and the doctors are there throughout the say 24 hours. For example, my daughter is also a doctor. 24 hours she serves in an hospital. So they're more risk prone. So that has to be done. Now, some other impacts I want to point out is say mostly I think this is also important: psychological impact, behavioral impact. And one say particular phobia is maybe particular, may become rampant in our society, which we call as agoraphobia. Agoraphobia means a fear of public space. For example, in open public space, you may fear, you may not, you may be very tensed, very anxious, very stressed to go there. So there will be mental depression. For example, if you observe your students, for example, now regarding their examinations, the third year students, so many people, different say segments of the society, they are depressed because of this situation. So mental depression is one of the important say. Hello, am I audible? Hello, hello.
Yes, sir.
So mental depression is a particular say area where we must be very much cautious. Now there is gender inequality. This is another problem. Gender inequality. UNDP has submitted report. In UNDP report, it has been observed that in our say social service or health service, about 70% of the workers are women, and they are more vulnerable. So that may be that may lead to gender inequality. That is, the women will be more vulnerable. Now there may be a changed consumption pattern depending upon say more people may be more dependent upon the digital platforms. For example, now say more and more parents will observe they are depending more on e-learning platforms, and that will lead to reduction. For example, now you are conducting this webinar. Normally in a webinar, in a seminar, for example, you spend a lot and refreshment, etc. There are so many suppliers, but now you do not depend on them. So the consumption pattern may change in near future, and occupational pattern may also change. In fact, during short run, we have observed that I have observed, or you may have also observed that say from auto drivers, they were shifting to vegetable sellers, the hawker. So this type of short-term occupational shift may be there. Now coming to the bailing out process quickly. So several countries of the globe, they have say undertaken this bailing out process. We observe that as a percentage of GDP, the fiscal package announced by Japan, USA, etc. India has announced 10% of the GDP as fiscal package. Fiscal support means government direct support, and through multiplier effect, there are two types of support. One is monetary policy of the government, and the fiscal policy. Monetary policy means say through it works through the interest rate changes, through bank policies of the RBI, through repo rate changes, etc. But in case of fiscal policy, it operates through direct government expenditure, some subsidy, transfer payments, etc. So bailing out process must concentrate on say food and nutrition security, then support to the migrant workers, then cash transfer, direct cash transfer, as has been pronounced or advocated by different economists, from Nobel laureates. They have also advocated this income transfer, which is very much needed. Now, health care, sick benefit, then food subsidy, input subsidy, old age survivor benefit, and insurance premium, which we are to pay, should be modified. And in several countries of the world, they have also modified the tax payment. That means our burden should be reduced so that we must have more and more, say our income, which we can spend tax, it's a non-taxable. So after tax disposable income, which we call it disposable income. So if our disposable income increases, then that will add to our consumption expenditure, and through multiplier effect, as per Keynesian jargon, it will lead to an injection in the society in terms of higher expenditure. Now, in terms of our Atmanirbhar Bharat, that package, 20 lakhs package, different, if you segregate this 20 lakhs package, what we observed that already it was announced in May, but already during March, there were some earlier packages, say Garib Kalyan, Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, etc., and RBI's measure of more and more liquidity in the system. But if you observe the Atmanirbhar, there are 5 parts, 5 tranches, and what we observe that out of this 20 lakhs, the recent researchers, including that Berkeley University, they have indicated that really, out of 20 lakhs, presently the government expenditure will be to the extent of 1,65,000 to 2,43,000. So it will be to the extent of 1.4% to 2% of the GDP. It will be not more than that. Okay, so we feel that the government, if you go through the Atmanirbhar, it is a perspective planning mostly. But what we need now is pumping money immediately in the hands of the people. Now, coming to MSME sector, which is very important, I want to throw a special light on this. In case I have already told you the importance of MSME, and in that fiscal package, it has announced that the government will give 100% credit guarantee and 3 lakh crores of worth of collateral-free loans will be there. But please observe that the firms, the MSME, who already had a very good track record and borrowed about say 25 outstanding loan, they can take 20% of their outstanding loan. Now the question is, who are those MSMEs who had the capacity to take a loan to the extent of 25 crore? Actually, they are not micro enterprises. Out of the about 6.34 crore, our MSME, 92% belong to the micro category according to old definition. So these are some of the larger segment of the MSME segment. So they will get the benefit, and according to government report, 45 lakhs, which is a very small percentage of out of 6 or 6.5 crore. Now, there are other packages, and mostly they are to the extent of in the form of credit giving. Now, so I think that instead of giving more credit, if the government gives more direct transfer income, which is more important now, to pump in money directly into the hands of the poor people, that will add more demand, and that demand shock problem can be properly mitigated. And this, after the change in the definition, we find most of the economists are of the opinion that now some of the big firms will have this facility, and if they do not repay their loan, then 100% credit guarantee will be there, and ultimately the impact will be upon the banks, and more NPA problems will be there. The MGNRGA is a very good suggestion, and there we observe, it is my observation is that during 2019-20, 40 to 50% enrollment has increased, and the wage has, per day wage has increased from 182 to 202, and till May 13, 2020, it has been offered 2.3 crore additional workers for this job. But in this special package, government has allotted 40,000 crore. But if out of 8 crore migrants, 2 crore has already been provided with job, and if the residual 6 crore are to be given 100 days work, then 6 crore man-days are to be provided, 600 crore, and if 202 rupees per day into 600 crore man-days, then total expenditure will be 1,21,200 crore. So the allotment 40,000 crore is much lower compared to that. Now this is an interesting aspect, interesting survey that has been made by Statista. In 13,200 respondents, this has been recently made between April 15 to 23. And in India, it's about 64 respondents. They are of the opinion that our government should give more emphasis to save our lives than to save our job. That is, in most of the countries, most of the people are of the opinion that the lives are more important. But if you observe the health expenditure of the government of India, it is only 1.7% of the GDP. So compared to other countries, our health infrastructure is not so much sound. So this pandemic also it has it has also given us a lesson that we must spend more on our health, and our health infrastructure should be much more sound. And the last slide, I have come to the end of my lecture, which indicates that the effort should be coordinated. Every part of the globe, UNDP, World Bank, ILO, everyone, they have indicated that the effort should be coordinated. This is a worldwide problem, so there should be a coordinated effort on the part of all the governments, all the countries of the world, and within India, all the state governments should also come forward. And we observe that government of Karnataka, government of Kerala, West Bengal, Delhi, every government with its own resource, availability of resource, they are making some of the steps so that the poor people do not suffer. For example, I am referring to Kerala case, where a financial package of 20,000 crore, highest among all the states, they have announced. And this says they are following a front-loading borrowing. When any fund is borrowed, any amount is borrowed by the government from the market, and maximum part of the borrowed fund is being spent within the first few segment of a fiscal, then it is called front-load borrowing. That means if you spend more, quickly you spend after borrowing, then that will again increase the disposable income of the common people, and that will add to the aggregate demand within the country, and that can mitigate our problem. Thank you. Hello. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. On behalf of the organizing committee, I thank cordially to Dr. Debashish Majumdar as a resource person. And important thing is that whatever title of our webinar, sir, totally fill up our need. That is from global to local. Whether I follow carefully that sir make a comparison between China and other countries, last of all compare between the states of India, and he totally cover all the things, that is informal sector, supply food chain, demand shock, and all the perspective of the economy. Rather, it is a socio-economic problem. And sir also give immense idea, and on behalf of the all participants also, I also check the chat box also. There are immense information comes in that. It is a lucid presentation, nice presentation, as shall sir cope up all the aspirations. And now, sir, if you give permission, then on behalf of participant, may I ask 2 or 3 questions?
Obviously.
Okay, sir. Sir, at first, one question comes in my mind, that when the lockdown comes and when there is certainly demand shock, and all of a sudden we see that the migrant workers comes from their field, and there is a reverse migration occurs. And we see that, and there some of the economists I see also in show or that they now reverse their work pattern to the agriculture or whatever. But after that is in unlock period, we see suddenly that migrated workers, when comes their homeland, and at the unlock period they they reverse to that place, whatever that would be, Maharashtra or whatever. So you see there is a sudden change. That is, you also give here a nice comparison, that in your statista we see that there is a sum of make life more important, give job more important. So there is a confusing to me, that if you please explain this.
Actually, if I can clearly understand this question, the question is that after lockdown, there was a reverse migration. That means the migrated people, they wanted to come back to their native village. Okay, that is number one.
Yes.
So in the unlock period, they again, there has been a tendency in some areas that they want to again, say, revert back to their workplace. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, what is the reason? Now, the reason is that I have already, in one of my points, I clearly indicated that when they come, for example, they come from Surat and they are engaged in, say, diamond polishing. Now, one worker, say, exporting diamond polishing for the last 15 years, if he comes to his native village, then he will not get the work. So you cannot just substitute his skill with some other skill. That means whatever, he will have to, say, sell vegetables, or he will have to say, engage himself in, say, 100 days work. So that, I think, number one, from the economic point of view, is say, misplaced emphasis or misplaced allocation of our say, resource. So normally they will not, from the individual point of view, they will not be satisfied with the job available in the village, number one. So at the first available chance, if they find the job, say, average wage rate is lower in the village than available in that particular city, then risking his particular life. So here comes the trade-off between life and livelihood. Then again, he reverts that. But here, the statistics that actually is fascinating to you, and it becomes complex to you, that when there is a sample survey, people are saying that life is more important. Now, when they are replying this answer, he actually, this answer is for the government. He believes that government must take responsibility for my life. That means if I go to the hospital, I must get proper treatment. So when the responsibility comes in terms of my, say health checkup or health facility on behalf of the government, I put more emphasis on the government, because I am a poor people. I do not have that money to go to the private hospital. So I'm emphasizing more on government, allocation or government responsibility for my health. But when livelihood comes, when my income is more important, and if urban income on an average is more than the rural income, then there will definitely be an economic impulse that will lead them again back to Maharashtra, as you have indicated. I think I have answered you.
Okay. Thank you, sir, very much. Sir, there is another question that is also related of migrant labor. Do I ask you, sir? Okay, Dr. Shubhranshu Pan asked this question: what will be the future of migrant laborer in India? This is the question.
Now, this is actually very difficult to answer. What will be the future? Actually, the migrant workers, my answer will be specifically for this question. So far in India, what we observe in a recent seminar in ILO, International Labour Organization, I was a participant. I observed that most of the experts, they are of the opinion that in India, in most of the states, there is no clear-cut law or order or any government rules, regulation. Though there is an act in 79 Act, there is a Migrant Laborer Act, but that act has never been implemented in different states. So in different states, there is no particular way, structured way of recording their names. So if they are not recorded, number one, they will not get the facility from the government, number one. And then in most of the states, it has also been observed that there is a local, requirement norm. For example, a son of the soil norm. So when the migrant workers move to, Maharashtra, then if there is any in any construction area, if there are both Maharashtrian worker and say workers from Bengal, then privilege is given to the Maharashtrian workers. So that is another way of discrimination. So if you want to reduce such discrimination, and if the government wants to give proper support, for example, to the this migrant workers, I can give you one example of Kerala. In Kerala, the government does not call them as migrant; they are called as guest worker. In Kerala, they are called as guest worker instead of migrant worker. So you know that in the Kerala, they started operating 134 community kitchen after this lockdown, and they have not allowed any migrant worker to move out of the state, so that particular thing, particular this disease is not contamination is not properly spread out. So government, every state government has the responsibility to properly protect the migrant workers through proper labor laws. If recently we have been observing there is some relaxation on the part of labor laws. In case of India, the government of India is wants to relax the labor laws. But if such labor laws are moves against the interest of the migrant workers, then in future our migrant workers will suffer. So my suggestion is that in the long run, more and more government protection should be there in the form of both fiscal support as well as say legal support.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Sir, there are another question related also in migrated labor. Whether you permit me, then I ask, and this would be the last question. Okay. So this question asked by Dr. Sanjit Kumar Shil Sharma. The question is, migrated labor, how migrated labor affect our economy? This was the question.
This is you can analyze it in several ways. For example, normally in a labor surplus economy like India, agricultural, as I have already explained in my earlier this PowerPoint presentation, that India observed during the pre-COVID period continuous fall in the labor absorption rate in agricultural sector. So agriculture, being a labor surplus with a labor surplus character, it could not absorb that surplus labor, and then they had to migrate. So why do they migrate? They migrate because they want to search out some new jobs, some say more and more lucrative jobs with higher wage rate. So if there is surplus labor, then there obviously the impact will be the migration. Okay, now this is the negative aspect, is that when they migrate, then they come from they're detached from their native village. There is a psychological cost, and if they are not absorbed properly in an organized segment, then they also suffer from insecurity and poor job condition. So remittance they send to their families will also be poor. So what I feel is that in case of India, if so long as there is the problem of surplus in agricultural sector, there will be a migration, because the pattern of production structure in the rural area, that should be changed. For example, recently of late, several economists are emphasizing that in rural area we must give more emphasis on food processing, fruit processing, supply chain, etc., so that in rural segment also we can give sufficient employment opportunities, so that people do not migrate. So if there is labor surplus, and if we can in near future, it should actually generate some scope, some opportunities of employment, proper employment with proper wage rate, higher wage rate in rural areas where the rural inputs will be used. I think in future, the impact, as the question, as the individual, my participant raised the question, that
Thank you, sir. And once again, we are thanking you on behalf of our organizing committee, okay, sir, for time spending with us. Now, I hand over mic virtually to Dr. Prabir Kara for vote of thanks of this webinar.
Thank you. Hello.
Okay, sir, you are audible, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Shantanu. Now we are at the flagging of our webinar. First of all, I would like to thank our respected speakers for their valuable and very insightful deliberation on the socio-economic implications of lockdown in Indian economy with possible solution of the present economic problems, taking time out from their busy schedule. I particularly want to convey my sincere gratitude to CSC Kumar Bandyopadhyay, Honorable Member of Governing Body, and Dr. Debashish Majumdar, Professor, Calcutta Heritage College, for coming and joining this webinar and to make it a grand success. I'd like to thank Dr. Abul Salam, librarian, Shibu Dinabandhu Institution, Howrah, for his technical support for the webinar. Without him, it would not have been possible for us to make this webinar a success. I'd also like to thank Mr. Mintu Haldar, librarian and bursar of Bholebur Ganguly College, for his untiring effort from the day one of its inception to make the webinar a success. I would also like to thank the organizing committee, especially Professor Asutosh Murmu, in charge of the Department of Economics, Dr. Shantanu Chakraborty, Assistant Professor, Department of Economics, Professor Satchidananda Sardar, and Advisor Professor Manavesh Majumdar for their active participation to make the webinar a success. My sincere thanks go to our esteemed participants who have joined this webinar and maintain a very good atmosphere throughout the webinar. I am assuring you that the feedback link will be open after the webinar and e-certificate will be provided shortly. Last but not the least, I would express my sincere gratitude to our Honorable Vice Principal, Sir, Dr. Sanjit Kumar Das, for his constant support and encouragement to make this webinar a grand success. Thank you all once again. I am now handing over the microphone to our Vice Principal, Sir, for his valedictory address. Thank you. Dr. Das, please. Hello.
Sir, you unmute your microphone, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Karar. And it's my pleasure to conclude the session. First of all, I express my sincere thanks and gratitude to Dr. Debashish Majumdar for his very nice presentation, informative presentation. We have known a lot from him and also from the presentation of C.S. Srikumar Banerjee. I express my sincere thanks to all the participants first. They have actually made successful this seminar, and I also express my heartiest thanks to all the members of the organizing committee who have completed the event with entire satisfaction and makes this webinar a grand success. And we have a lot of programs in our hands also. In coming days, we have an international webinar on physics and also from chemistry. So these sort of things will carry on by our team members with their efforts. We hope in coming days we'll be providing also these sort of academic endeavors. So we always expect your participation, your suggestion. So thank you all. And in these few words, I again concluding this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Hey, Abul Salam sir, hello. হ্যাঁ
বলুন।
বলছি ফিডব্যাক লিঙ্কটা তো ওপেন করে দেবেন তাই তো? হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে, ওই চ্যাট বক্সে এসে ফিডব্যাক লিঙ্কটা ওপেন হয়নি। হ্যাঁ ঠিক। দেবাশিস বাবু অনেক ধন্যবাদ। দেবাশিস বাবু আছেন?
হ্যাঁ আছি।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, ভীষণ ভালো লেগেছে, ভীষণ ভালো লেগেছে।
একটা
হ্যাঁ,
রিকোয়েস্ট
দারুণ।
করবো, একটা রিকোয়েস্ট করি, যদি কোনো
বলুন, বলুন।
রেকর্ড থাকে বা রেকর্ডিং আমাকে পাঠান, তাহলে আমাদের তো প্রচুর
হ্যাঁ,
রয়েছে
হ্যাঁ।
যারা শুনবে, ধরুন